Shalom, all praises to Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawashi, bahasham, Rcha Kwadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well and labor in the word and doctrine. Shalom, meaning peace. May that be unto the elect of the nation of Israel. So in Acts chapter 6, in verse 1, there's a lot of meat in here. Alright, so let's go ahead. It says, and in those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews, because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration. Now really the topic of daily, now one of you brothers, you should do a response on that. Daily, generally the topic of daily. We're going to zoom in on these two ideas, Grecians, Hebrews, and see what we can get out of it. Lord willing, it be edifying. So let's get into this. Grecian, murmuring of the Grecians. So let's hear this word.
Strong's G 1675, Hellenistes. Hellenistes.
It says a Hellenist, one who imitates the manners and customs of the worship of the Greeks and use the Greek tongue. B, used in the NT of Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek. Now, we have to know the history in order to understand the mystery. So let's go into some of these. The first Maccabees, be a great place to start. Now we should all know the beginning of, or certain kings out of these empires. They're going back to Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. There's certain rulers. Now you have to know every single minute detail, but you should be a scholar in certain bits of history that are necessary to understand in order to break down these scriptures. Now you can't really go into the Jews and the Greeks if you don't have a little bit of knowledge on the history of Maccabees, of the history, maybe some secular history, going into certain writings that bear witness to it. I've got a book called, and it's not, the primary source is these scriptures, right? And all this history was written aforetime for our learning, we may better understand, the prophecies, because us coming back to the Lord, because we're all Gentiles, in a Gentile state of mind, in a Greek state of mind, coming back. And that's fulfillment of what? Ezekiel 37, Jeremiah and 16. Not that all those chapters have been fully fulfilled, but the fact we'd be oppressed together, that is prophecy, that we'd come back. Jeremiah 50, sorry, not 16, but Jeremiah 50, that we'd be oppressed together. And it's all going back to this. It's all going back to the history, because the thing that hath been is that which shall be. So without further ado, make we read. First Maccabees 1. And I say that to say we should know that Alexander, the Greek, the freak, came out of Chetim, right, the land of Chetim, of Macedonia, the son of Philip, and after he died, the people rose up after him. So first Maccabees 1 and 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bare rule, every one in his place, and after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. So you see, it was their sons, so there was continuing a lineage, and evils was multiplied, proving that what they are the wicked. Malachi 1 and start 3. And I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahawah, Tazaba'ah. They shall build, but I'll throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahawah bahasham Yahawashi hath indignation forever. That's dealing with righteous anger, because they've had a perpetual hatred against the children of Israel, and that's how you had Jews becoming Greeks, Israelites becoming Greeks. If we get into 2 Maccabees 6. 2 Maccabees 6:6. Says, neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient fast, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. And now this is when a certain one of Alexander's generals and the descendants thereof began to take rulership. That they were spreading the Hellenist way of life, turning it to hell. Really, Hellen goes back to a Greek that word there. So you're going to go into the Wikipedia entry on Hellenization. You can see at the top, Wikipedia/Hellenization, and read a bit of the Judea part, because it begins to tell us when or how the Israelites became Greeks. So it says the Hellenistic Seleucid and Ptolemaic kingdoms that formed after Alexander's death were particularly relevant to the history of Judaism. What does that mean? The customs, the way of life, the way of living of the Jews, or in Judea. So you might have a certain northern kingdom Israelite that kept the customs, but if they were in Judea, they'd be classed as Jews. So it says, located between the two kingdoms, Judea experienced long periods of warfare and instability. Judea fell under Seleucid control in 198 BC. By the time Antiochus IV Epiphanes became king of Judea in 175 BC, Jerusalem was already somewhat Hellenized. In 170 BC, both claimants to the high priesthood, Jason and Menelaus, bore Greek names. You can read them about this, accounts of all of this really in these scriptures. Jason had established institutions of Greek education, and in later years Jewish culture started to be suppressed, including forbidding circumcision, and observance of the Sabbath. Alright, so you see that, and we just read it there. It was forbidden. It says, neither was it lawful, and it was lawful in the eyes of the Heavenly Father, but in the law of the land of the Greeks and them that came out of the initial Alexander Empire or Alexander rulership, it wasn't lawful under their decrees, their unrighteous decrees, Isaiah 10:1, to keep the Sabbath, ancient fast, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. So if you're in a Greek land, you can't call yourself a Jew. Everyone else is a Greek. What do you become? You become a Hellene. But then if you're children, and you could keep the custom in your mind, or you could think upon it, meditate upon it. But after that happens, you can't outwardly express it for generation. You can't teach your children about it. It's outlawed. Then you become, and you're not allowed to speak Hebrew. You take on the Greek language, taking on the Greek customs. Then these Jews became Greeks. Now, of course, they're not now Japhethites, which is the land that they're on. They're not now Edomites, which is because really the custom of the Greeks was regurgitated, Edomized ancient Egyptian culture, ancient Sumerian, Babylonian, Assyrian custom, but it's got Esau's face on it, man. So that's all that is. So that's how the Jews, the Israelites, became Greeks. And now that continued for generation. Then you had certain wicked Israelites that they were propagating that. They were pushing that same Greek doctrine upon their own people or upon their own children, willingly. So after generation upon generation of that, of course you have them that fell away. And not the falling away of 70 AD, but they fell away from their culture. Right? When you talk about the falling away must first come, that's talking about 70 AD. So forgive me on the wording on that. Well, Lord, when I made that clear. So Hellenistes, it says one who imitates the manners and customs or the worship of the Greeks and use the Greek tongue, used in the NT of Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek. So if you're speaking Greek, you were looked upon, by the Jews keeping the customs, you were looked upon as unclean, as though you're actually a heathen, right? A non-Israelite. That's how you were looked upon. And there is a difference between that. In Matthew, the 18th chapter, if you can reconcile a matter when a brother's transgressed, then you can't hear two or three, you bring one or two, so you can't hear in the mouth of two or three, then you can't hear the whole church, then you cast him away as a heathen man and a publican, showing that there was a difference how the other nations were treated. If you want me to use my proper English, darling. Now when we get into John the 7th chapter, and this is where it comes in on the Gentiles versus the Gentiles. Because not every time you read the word Gentile, is it the word ethnos. Right? Not every time you read the word Gentile in the Old Testament, so-called, the writings of Genesis to Malachi, do you read the word, sorry, when you do read the word Gentile there, it's the word Gawayam, or Gauya, right? Yeah, rather Gauya, dealing with a nation, or a people group. In the Greek, the equivalent would be ethnos. Now, when you go into this, when it talks about Gentiles, we'll see what the word there is. So it said John 7:35. We'll read up. John 7:34. Ye shall seek me, and shall not find me, and where I am, thither ye cannot come. Verse 35. Then the Jews among themselves, then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go, that we shall not find him? Will he go into the dispersed among the Gentiles, and teach the Gentiles? Now let's look at this word for Gentiles. Like I say, it's not ethnos. Which, if you're dealing with the Greek, off the top of your head, if you were to guess, you'd probably guess ethnos. Now, if you know about Hellen and all of this history there, of course you would most likely know that. Let's listen to this now.
Strong's G 1672. Hellen.
I'm not sure you'd be thinking of Timothy, Titus. This is a Greek, either by nationality, whether a native of the mainlands or of the Greek islands and colonies. Now listen to the second definition. In a wider sense, the name embraces all nations not Jews that made the language, customs and learning of the Greeks their own. The primary reference is to a difference of religion and worship. So this primarily is dealing with the customs. Hellenistes, it goes into the language. When you go into the blue letter, it says about customs too. Now let's get here. Acts 17 and 1. Acts 16 and 1. I was adding those numbers up in my head, apparently. It says, Then came he to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there, named Timotheus. Now this is where you get the name Timothy. Right, it's in 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy. It said, the son of a certain woman, which was a Jewess, and believed, but his father was a Greek, which was well reported of by the brethren that were at Lystra and Iconium. So when you go into this, his mother was a Jewess, meaning she grew up in the customs, and she believed, she kept the laws, statutes, commandments, the faith to the best of her ability, and believed. It says that's the faith. But his father was a Greek, so his father wasn't keeping the customs, or wasn't doing what as an Israelite should do. But the brother was well reported. Timotheus was well reported of, so he was renowned. All right, I know his father's going off, but this brother is actually he's cool. Like you might know certain Jakes in this truth, and you know their father, and you know their father's going off doing some different customs, but you're aware that doesn't have an impact on them. They're just like Abram at that time. His father Terah was dealing with idolatry, whereas that didn't have an impact on Abraham or Abram's faith. Abram, who then became Abraham. Now, when we go to Acts 15, that's that whole dispute, and there was a lot of pressure on Paul. They were saying that Paul was teaching contrary to the law, so then there was a lot of pressure, and basically he took Timothy to go and get circumcised, primarily just to shut them up, to prove that he wasn't teaching against the law. But the whole basically not putting the whole burden of the law on the Israelites that were coming back into the faith was the premise of that dispute there. So I'm going to Acts 6. It says, And in those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews, because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration. Now remember, Jews and Greeks. Let's see what this word Gentiles is. No, that'll probably be ethnos. Yeah, there you see. So Gentiles, at the same time you'll read it in the English. And that goes back to different nationality. So they're calling someone a Gentile, is not a nationality in itself. A Jew and a Gentile, a Jew and a Greek, even that. In fact, firstly, Let me just calm down. So you've got Jews, which is a nationality. It could be referring to the tribe of Judah. Could be referring to the kingdom of Judah, the southern kingdom. So Judah, Benjamin, and Levi as well, I guess. So primarily, it's dealing with that the tribe, the kingdom, or if you're keeping the customs of them living in Judea, you're known as a Jew as well. Now, a Gentile could mean any nationality. If we're going into the word ethnos, it just literally means ethnicity. Now, if you say, oh, you're an ethnicity, all right, cool, or you're an ethnic, it probably means a non-Edomite in this society. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, it's not specific. It's not saying, all right, so you're a so-called Jamaican. That would be a quote-unquote ethnic group in the world in this day and age. But if you just say you're an ethnic or an ethnic minority, right, we know what you're not, which is the majority, allegedly. So in the place where we dwell, most likely Babylon or England, we know who the majority are. Now, if you're an ethnic minority, it tells you you're definitely not this, so you're not a Jew, just like Jew or Greek, or Jew and Gentile, you're not a Jew, but it didn't say what you are. And that's the key thing that people miss. Oh, he's a Gentile. And certain people go to Genesis 10, and verse 5, it says, by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, and every one after his tongue, after their families and in their nations. Now the word Gentile goes back to Gauya. Yeah, Gauya. And people say, see, so the Japhethites, because it starts from 2 through 5, it's talking about Japheth. See, the Japheth, they're the only Gentiles. So when it says Gentiles in the New Testament, it's dealing with Japheth. Now that's just that's poor scholarship, truly. Because when we go into Genesis 10 and 20. These are the sons of Ham, after their families and in their tongues, in their countries and in their nations. The word nations there is the word Gauya. Right, you can see it there. So it said it could say in their Gentiles, but that doesn't really make sense in the context of the words used. So don't let that trip you up. So it tells you what nationality you're not, but it doesn't tell you what nationality you are. Now let's go back into Acts 6 on, I think it's Chuck Smith. See if we can find it. So Chuck Smith says, woo! Alright, Acts 6 and 1 by Chuck Smith, commentary. B. There arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Jews. Says number 1, the Grecians here are the Hellenistic. It speaks of a culture, not an ethnic race. So we'll bring this out to Christians on the street or whatever, and they say, oh no, it's talking of the Greeks. You know who the Greeks are, quote unquote white Greeks. Well, your friend Chuck Smith, your top Christian mate of yours, mate, it speaks of a culture, not an ethnic race. Right, 2, the Grecian were Jews who were living after the Grecian culture. The Hebrews here are the Jews who were living after Hebrew culture. And we'll keep going. Alexander the Great had a great influence on the ancient world. He left pockets of Grecian culture throughout the world. It says one of his succeeding generals ruled over Syria and another over Egypt. Thus, for many years, Israel was surrounded by Grecian culture and many adapted to it. Alright, so there you have it. Yeah, even Chuck Smith says, it basically teaches what we teach on that. Ironically. Right, so Romans 9 and 24. Even us, whom he hath called, not of the Jews only, but also of the Gentiles. Now if you go to Romans 9, verse 3 through 5, there's no room for error. There's no room for debate past that. But if you want to read this out of context, which many a Christian have, at least to me, in my short time. So let's see. Romans 9, 24 and 25 now. Or through 26 truly. Even us whom he hath called, not of the Jews only, but also of the Gentiles. So remember, you've got one group, the Jews, contrasted with the Gentiles. As he saith also now, see, I will call them my people which were not my people, and her beloved which was not beloved. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it is said unto them, ye are not my people, there shall they be called the children of the living power. Right now, what groups does this include? Does this include the Jews and every single nation? Because it says it, as it's saying OC, and we're going to the Greek for OC, and we'll find out it's Yahawashi, Hosea. Right, here we have it.
Strong's G 5617, Hosea. Hosea.
Alright. Then there you have it, Yahawashi. So going to the book. Hosea 1. So Hosea 1 and verse 10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered, and it shall come to pass that in the place where it is said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living power. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together, and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. It goes back to Yazari Allah. Right, he is the seed of the power. And the seed of the power is Israel, Jake. So any groups, the Jews and the Gentiles, any of them Gentiles are Israelites. They're coming back to the faith after being estranged, which is what you have in Ephesians. See, it's a mystery. It's the mystery, but it's being revealed. So Ephesians 2 and 11. Wherefore remember that ye, being in the time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called the uncircumcision, by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands. Now you had them, what did it say? It said certain practices under the Greeks, such as circumcision, were banned, were forbidden. They said that on the history there. It says in verse 12, that at the time you were without Hamashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope, and without Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawashi in the world. Now the covenants of promise, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the glory, and the covenants, and the giving of the law, so on and so forth. So they're still Israel. Aliens, foreigners from Israel, an Israelite foreigner. Verse 13, but now in Hamashiach Yahawashi, ye, who sometimes were afar off, are made nigh by the blood of Hamashiach. So that's what it's talking about, the reconciliation, the wall of partition is dealing with the Jews, them in the customs, the quote-unquote Jews or the Israelites in the customs, and the Hebrews were going back to the Israelites who were in the customs, whereas the Greeks, I don't know if I just misspoke, but the Greeks are the Israelites keeping the customs of the Greeks or the non-Israelites, and the Hebrews are the Israelites keeping the customs of the Israelites. They're doing what they should do, quote-unquote. And really it was all set up. And they went off so that this could be part of the mystery. Right? That we couldn't have this mystery, we couldn't have this gospel of reconciliation without someone first going off. So it's all according to the Lord's will. Something we have to recognize there. Now let's get one more witness in Maccabees. It's 2 Maccabees 6 and 10. For there were two women brought who had circumcised their children, whom when they had openly led round about the city, the babes handing at their breasts, they cast them down headlong from the wall, and others that had run together into caves nearby to keep the Sabbath day secretly, being discovered by Philip, were all burnt together, because they made a conscience to help themselves for the honor of the most sacred day. So you have to realize how wicked they were, and how now Jake's out here getting this yab because, well, in the Babylon, because they can't work, right? But it's not saying if you don't get it, we're gonna kill you. But you see how easy you can be manipulated. Now, if you're seeing Jakes get killed, thrown off buildings head first, stomachs cut open, beheaded, all of these wicked, torturous acts, it's not going to be on a weak Jake's spirit to go, all right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna keep the customs. Now a lot of them just go, all right, well, I guess this is a new way. Yeah, so you have to really be able to visualize it. It's easy to say now, from the comfort of your time, for your comfort of your home in this time. Oh yeah, well I still do it. Well, we've got something bigger than this coming, so we're really gonna get tested. Revelation 2 and 10, Revelation 3 and 10, these times are coming. And it's all in, these things were written for our learning, understanding how wicked and how horrible these people were towards us. Well, there's a time deeper than this coming. So that should help you, quote unquote, prepare. The only way you can prepare is preparing in the spirit. You're not going to stack up enough beans that are going to keep you through Jacob's trouble. You better be stacking up that faith. When neither moth nor dust can corrupt. So 2 Maccabees 6 verse 12. Now I beseech those that read this book that they be not discouraged for these calamities, but that they judge those punishments not to be for destruction, but for a chastening for our nation. Right, so ultimately we did go off. And these punishments are for punishments. Right? Not to be for destruction, rather for a chastening. Right? Chaste, going back to clean, pure, holy. We may recognize what our true goal is upon this earth. And it's to do this gospel. Right? And you have to understand these things in the history. Like I say, like the apostles say, to understand the mystery. Right, and the things to come. Primarily the things to come. Right, so I pray that was edifying, exhorting. On to the next one, Lord willing. Giving all praises to Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawashi, bahasham, Racha Kodash. Shalom.